When we talk about sports, you have to, everyone that plays a professional sport, whether it's basketball, football, hockey, tennis, whatever, they're at the top of their game. So what you need to do is, and what people try to do, and what is an advantage a lot of times, is trash talk and trying to get under somebody's skin. There's advantages and disadvantages to trash talk, of course. There is, of course, some people don't take trash talk well, so they can get a little rattled and ultimately get off their game. But some people cherish and live in trash talk, and it kind of fuels them. The problem with trash talk and the problem with, going at someone and using that tactic is you have to be able to back up whatever you say. You can't talk trash to somebody and then not back it up, or not have the resume or not have the moxie to live in whatever you're saying. That's kind of what we saw going on in round one with Dillon Brooks and the Los Angeles Lakers, primarily LeBron James. Dillon Brooks lives in this realm where he may not be, there's basketball players, there's NBA players that obviously aren't as athletic, aren't as God-givenly gifted in areas that other people are. Like Dillon Brooks is not as big as Giannis and can't run and jump like Giannis. He can't shoot as good as Steph. He's not a physical presence that LeBron James is. And you see multiple people in the NBA like that. PJ Tucker's like that. Patrick Beverley's pretty much the poster child to living in that realm. Dillon Brooks obviously is like that. They don't have the most they don't have the same amount of God-given abilities that other basketball players have. So they live in that realm of, okay, I have to get it the only way I can, and that is being a rugged, tough, scrappy basketball player. Now, don't get me wrong. It sounds like I am being negative. I'm not. Hell, Patrick, this has worked on PJ Tucker. He's a champion now, and of course he continues to get contracts. Same as Patrick Beverley. It works for certain people. But certain people, and for Dillon Brooks, he is one of those people that it works for. I mean, Dillon Brooks, he has been, even though it's been a struggle, especially in the playoffs these last few years, he has been a very important cog to the Memphis Grizzlies. But a report came out. Of course, we know that the Memphis Grizzlies lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in round one. A report came out that Dillon Brooks will not be returning to the Memphis Grizzlies, in quotes, under no circumstances. And that is where I want to start this episode. Under no circumstances. Those 3 words, under no, those 3 words was telling to me, because you don't usually see that. It's kind of like when Kyler Murray had that stipulation in his contract that he needs to study film. You usually don't see that, and if it is in a contract, it usually never gets out. Well, under no circumstances got out because somebody wanted it out. And more than likely, that somebody was the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, a lot of people are attributing this to the trash talk that Dillon Brooks, of course, has done majority of his career, especially this year. The whole villain role and trash talking to LeBron James, the whole poke the bear incident, and he's 40, or the trash talk that Dillon Brooks has said. A lot of people are attributing to why, the biggest reason why not only Memphis lost, but why Dillon Brooks will not be returning to the team. And while I do think that is a piece to this puzzle, I don't think it's the whole picture. one of the biggest reasons why we have talked about the Memphis Grizzlies, not because of how good they are in basketball, but because of what they've said as an organization, whether it's their star player in Ja Morant, whether it's multiple players, Dillon Brooks. They have said things that their resumes have not been able to back up. And for a while now, it has seemed that the Memphis Grizzlies are kind of run by the players. Now, that's not always a problem. For instance, I think it kind of feels like the Golden State Warriors are run by the players. Yes, Steve Kerr is a great coach, one of the best coaches we have in basketball. Yes, their ownership is good, but you can tell, you can just sense that, the team is run by the players, Steph, Clay, Draymond Green, the leaders of the team. They kind of run the ship. And whatever happens kind of goes through them, because the Golden State Warriors hasn't seen this level of success without those players. So I'm more than sure that most things that happen with the Los Angeles Lakers runs through LeBron James, runs through Anthony Davis. I'm not saying that it's a problem when the players mainly run, or for lack of a better term, do what they want. That's not always a problem. The problem comes when the players that are quote unquote running the organization aren't mature. One thing that we've been talking about outside of course, the lack of balance that the Memphis Grizzlies have on the basketball court is the fact that they have been one of the most immature teams that we've seen. Yes, Ja Morant is a really good player. Yes, Triple J is a really good player. Yes, Desmond Bane's a really good player. And at times, Dillon Brooks has been a really good player for the Memphis Grizzlies. It's hard when your leader is Steven Adams, and Steven Adams is only 29 years old. I'm not saying that age is attached to leadership, but you have to respect someone enough to be a leader. And I'm not saying they don't respect Steven Adams, but they may respect him as a peer, not as a veteran, not as a leader. You kind of see the same issue with Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson, I guess, sees himself as a leader for the Minnesota Timberwolves, but Kyle Anderson hasn't really done enough to be a leader. He hasn't really been that important to be a veteran on a team. The only thing that kind of makes him a veteran is how many years he's been in the league. But, I mean, what do you do with those years? And Kyle Anderson hasn't done much. Steven Adams in the same boat. Don't get me wrong. Kyle Anderson, Steve Adams are good players, but I just don't know if they're leaders. And while, yes, you can call them veterans because of how many years they played in the league, but if we're talking about being a vet to a team and a team looking at you as being that, for lack of a better term, father figure to the team, I don't know if Steven Adams is that. But again, and that's probably going to be the title of this episode, under no circumstances. That is what really jumped out to me with the whole Dillon Brooks not returning. And honestly, I'm not even going to say quiet as it's kept. Honestly, the problem is in Memphis has not been Dillon Brooks. Yes, Dillon Brooks was doing all that talking. Last season, he averaged 14 points a game, 3 assists a game. Oh, no, 3 assists a game and 3 rebounds. In the playoffs, that number skyrocketed to... that number skyrocketed to 10 points a game and 2 assists a game. So all of his numbers plummeted pretty much. But when you hear the word under no circumstances, that's not because of the playoffs. You also heard reports saying that the Memphis Grizzlies have tried several times to reach a contract extension with Dillon Brooks. The talks have just died. That's not Dillon Brooks' camp saying it. That's the Memphis Grizzlies. They're telling you everything that they're telling you the real reason why he's leaving. They're telling you it, just not telling you. You see, when the John Morant situation happened earlier, the whole gun situation, I promise you that the owner, maybe the GM, the higher ups in Memphis talk to the entire team about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable moving forward. And it's not just the gun incident, but that's pretty much the pinnacle of the issues that the Memphis Grizzlies have seen over this last 2-3 years. Hell, you remember they even changed their travel schedule. Instead of a lot of teams, if they have multiple days between games and you're on a road game, a team might stay a day. With the Memphis Grizzlies, that's not happening anymore. After the game, they're going straight home. That's because of the Ja Morant situation. So I feel when the team goes under no circumstances, and then shortly goes, we've been trying to reach a contract extension with Dillon Brooks. They just all have failed. That tells me two things. That tells me that the under no circumstances part means Dillon Brooks more than likely came back and expected to resume contract talks. And then when they were just like, no, we tried for this amount of years we tried this amount of time and you have not, you haven't acquiesced. And it also tells me that the organization was tired of the media or the media that came with Dillon Brooks, because it was never, oh, Dillon Brooks is a great player, Dillon Brooks is this, Dillon Brooks is that. It's the whole villain mantra. But why am I starting this episode with Dillon Brooks? Dillon Brooks is not a block topic. Because the problem in Memphis is not Dillon Brooks. The problem in Memphis is Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a great player. Ja Morant can be the face of the NBA one day. That's how good of a player is. That's how marketable Ja Morant is. But what else do we know about Ja Morant? Ja Morant has had several incidences where he has proven that he is not mature enough to be the face of a team. Which goes back to the whole veteran thing and why veterans are so important. And why you look at a team like the Rockets that have absolutely no veterans. While you don't hear a lot of stuff you don't really hear anything off the court. The product, the lack of veteran leadership is seen on the court. For Memphis, it's the complete opposite. It's seen off the court. Ja Morant with the gun incident. Ja Morant and his crew with the whole laser beam situation with, I think it was against the Pacers. Ja Morant in the whole mall situation with the security guard. Ja Morant in the situation where the kid was at his house playing basketball, and I think they got into a physical altercation or something. What I'm saying is this. I believe Dillon Brooks was the scapegoat for the bigger picture. If they just didn't want to bring Dillon Brooks back because he's not good enough, you don't hear the words under no circumstance. It spells and it is clear that he is the scapegoat for the bigger problem. The bigger problem is they're unable to really get rid of the actual problem that we've seen, and that is the lack of maturity from their star player. You see, the team In team sports, usually the team is a representative of their best player. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, what do you think of? You think of cool, you think of calm, you think collected, you think kind of flashy, but you also think mature, even though they're young. Why is that? Because they have adapted the mantra of the personality of their best player, which is Joe Burrow. When you look at I usually use Golden State. Let's look at a different team. When you look at we'll talk about Mike Budenholzer in a second, but when you look at the Bucks, what do you see? You see a team that doesn't really talk much, a team that you don't really know much about until they give you information. A very defensive team, a very good a sound team. Well, they take on the personality of their best player, which is Giannis Antetokounmpo. When you look at the Memphis Grizzlies, when their best player is immature, when their best player talks a lot without having the resume to back it up, when their best player is so good that you really can't reprimand them because it would drastically affect the team, well, then the team is going to react the same exact way. So do I think Dillon Brooks deserve to be, for lack of a better term, kicked out of Memphis? No. I don't think Dillon Brooks is the best player, no. But I think that Dillon Brooks is a serviceable player, and I think Dillon Brooks can really help a team. But I don't think it's because of Dillon Brooks' skill set being the reason why he is pretty much not returning to Memphis. I think not only is he the scapegoat to all the problems that Memphis has seen over the years, but I think that there's more to this story. I think Dillon Brooks plays there's probably things that have happened with Dillon Brooks that we don't know about. And again, they're 3 words, but those 3 words are incredibly powerful, and that is under no circumstances. And it goes back to the Kyler Murray thing. That's why having the clause in the contract about watching film was so big, because you never see that. You don't see under no, unless they do something egregious, which we haven't been privy to that Dillon Brooks has done. I think Dillon Brooks will definitely have a landing spot. I mean, you're hearing the Miami Heat, and the way Dillon Brooks plays, he would be a happy addition for Pat Riley and them, Eric Spoelstra and that team. So do I think Dillon Brooks is done in the league? No, I don't think he's going to China. But I think that there is a bigger issue in Memphis. And the problem is, the issue is there is the face of their organization. And until he changes, and until he gets his act together, the Memphis Grizzlies will always have a ceiling that is lower than their expectation, and actually lower than their potential. Potential doesn't equal ceiling. And until he gets it right, Ja Morant, the Memphis Grizzlies will never, ever reach the goals that they expect to reach. And it just so happened that this iteration of what happened next sees Dillon Brooks out the door. Whether you believe he deserves to be out or not, he is out. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.